Alright, so I'm just going to go back through this one just real quick. This was plus, minus, this was cosine theta equals negative 1/3. This was cosine theta equals 1. For this one, we had to type in second cosine of negative 1/3. We got this answer. We had to put it into degrees, minutes, and seconds. And so one of our answers then is 109 degrees, 28 minutes. The other answer, though, was going to be in that third quadrant, so that's when we did the 360 minus this to get the answer in the third quadrant. We got that, and then we had to change it into degrees, minutes, and seconds. And so our other answer would be 250 degrees, 32 minutes. And then do you remember what this answer was? Cosine theta equals 1, 0. So those would be the three answers, and that's because this had to be in quadrant 2 and 3. Alright, let's do part B now. So on part B, what are we going to do here to get it, to solve it? Take the what? Square root. So now we're going to have cotangent theta equals plus or minus radical 3. I could use a calculator on this, but if I wanted to use a calculator, I would have to change this into tangent theta equals plus or minus 1 over radical 3. Do you see that? Because I'd have to do the reciprocal function. Now I could do second tan of 1 divided by radical 3. And we get 30. So 30 degrees is one of our answers. Did we really need to use the calculator there? No. This is an exact answer. So I could have just realized that cotangent is going to be x over y, and so I could see that that's a 30-degree reference. But which quadrants am I going to have to use? All of them. So I'm going to have to use this one, this one. Can you guys tell me what it would be in quadrant 2? 3? And 4. Good. So those would be all of our answers that would make this a true equation. All right. Let's look at number 4. Last part. Solve the equation to find theta for 0 to 2 pi. So now we're in radians. When possible, find the exact angle measure. If it is not possible to find the exact angle measure, round the angle to the nearest hundredth. Okay, common mistake here. People look at this and say, oh, I'm going to divide both sides by cosine theta. You can't do that. You can never divide by a variable. Theta is a variable, so you can't divide both sides by that. Here's what you have to do instead. You have to get it set equal to 0. Now you have to factor. So what can we factor out? Cosine theta. So we're going to have cosine theta, and we're left with 2 sine theta minus 1 equals 0. So one of my solutions then is cosine theta equals 0. The other is going to be 2 sine theta equals 1, because I'm setting it equal to 0, taking that over. So sine theta equals 1/2. Do I want to use a calculator for this? No, this is an exact one, isn't it? We have cosine theta equals 0. Right there. Do you guys see how that's where x would be 0? Because that point is going to be 0, 1. And this point is 0, -1. So cosine is 0 here and here. Now let's say you didn't know that. Let's say I use the calculator accidentally. And I do second cosine of 0. Here's what it gives me, 90. But I'm supposed to give the answer in radians. So what's the answer in radians for this? Pi over 2, and what else? Yeah. And see, that's the other problem, is the calculator is only going to give you one answer. You have to be smart enough to find all the answers. That would be solutions. What about sine theta equals 1/2? 1/2. Do you know the reference angle? 30. What's 30 in radians? Pi over 6. And then which other quadrant? 2. And so what would it be there? Great. Okay, and then this one. To solve this, we're going to have to take the square root of both sides, and we get tan theta equals plus or minus radical 5. Is that one of our exact ones? No. So I'm going to have to use the calculator on it. I do not want to be in degrees now because we're trying to find it between 0 and 2 pi. So I have to go to my mode. I'm going to have to go to radians. I'm going to do second tan of radical 5 gives me 1.15. Which quadrant is that in? It's in quadrant 1, isn't it? So I have 1.15 in quadrant 1, so that's going to be one of my answers. This is approximate. Which other quadrant am I going to have to use? All of them. And in every quadrant, I'm going to have that 1.15 reference angle. So would you know how to find it in quadrant 2? What I would have to do to find the angle that starts here and ends there? Yeah, good. So I can actually do that, or I can even just do pi to make it a little faster. And I'm going to do minus this angle. 1.99 is my other answer. What about in the third quadrant? How would we figure it out? Pi plus it. So I'm going to have to do pi plus, go up and get it, 4.29. And then what about in the fourth quadrant, to go from here all the way around to here? 2 pi minus. And I am not one for you to memorize rules. I don't want you memorizing that. I just want you to think about it, figure it out logically. And that is 5.13. Okay? So we just think about how would we do that? Well, it's going to be 2 pi minus that little angle right there. All right, any questions? Okay, good job.